Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Kali, Columbia at Shama Ashram. This is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York City, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to our show. Welcome to the Srimad Bhagavatam. Welcome to Friday. And we are here in a beautiful tropical paradise ashram, eating different types of fruits that we never heard of, hearing and chanting, doing the stuff that we're supposed to do. It's like an immersion. And it's good to be immersed in spiritual life, at least, a little times of the year where you can just dive in. You got no other distractions. And that's what we're doing here. So we're with a bunch of, it's a bunch of others, people I don't even know that much well, but I know them and they listen to Wisdom of the Sages, and really from all around America and some people from Europe. And it's quite a great group. How are you guys?
I'm doing okay.
You doing okay?
Mm-hmm.
My wife said it's 8 degrees at home. It's hard to say you're in a tropical paradise when someone says it's 8 degrees. Usually, then I have to make up the lie. It's like, oh, well, we're getting kidnapped. We're getting kidnapped. I'm in the back of a trunk right now. So what's up? What's up, Kaustubha?
What's up? Well, I thought you had a little nugget for us this morning, a little wisdom nugget.
Well, I had a rough night last night. I don't know if I have any wisdom. You got a wisdom nugget for me?
Yeah, you and I yesterday discussed that we might go back and look at that quote that we took from Krishnamacharya yesterday. Right?
Yes.
Do you recall that? Is that anywhere?
Juggling a lot of humans here.
Okay.
There's a lot of humans.
But we read a quote yesterday, or I tried by memory to.
It was a good quote.
Yeah. So I went and I dug it up, so I got the exact thing here. You ready?
Yeah, let's do this again. So it's
okay.
We're repeating what we did yesterday, but it's worthy of it.
Yeah.
And this is the guru of Patabi Joyce, of Iyengar, of the father of Desikachar, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's like basically responsible for most of the yoga that we're getting in the United States, at least. So 65% at least, probably.
He's often referred to as the father of modern yoga. But he was a Vaishnava, right? He was a Bhakti-yogi. He was coming from a sampradaya, from a lineage called the Sri Sampradaya, which is a very important lineage, Vaishnava lineage, the lineage of worshippers of Lord Vishnu from South India. Real traditionalist, like he was a real
traditionalist, right? And he was like a Sanskrit scholar and a astrologer, right?
Yeah. When we had Mahamuni, Matthew Dasti on a few weeks ago, we interviewed him. So his specialty is Nyaya, and he spoke about the 6 classical schools of Indian philosophy.
Yeah.
So Krishnamacharya actually, as a young man, traveled all over India and received degrees in all 6 Saddarshans, all 6 of those philosophies. And you know where he studied Nyaya?
Did he study in a cave?
I think he studied asana, in
asana in a cave.
There are stories about that up in the Himalayas that, he had, I think, I for some reason I want to say Ram Mohan Baba or something like that.
Yeah,
It was
that's his guru.
yeah, but
He
he
had a whole
studied.
mystical story.
Yeah, I don't remember it, but it
It
does
was like
kind of ring a
some
bell.
dead person appeared to him living and taught
Oh,
him
not the
something.
Muni, not the
Yeah, not
Muni,
the Mooney.
not the who was also an acharya, a great teacher in that lineage, appeared to
Isn't that interesting? The
Krishnamacharya.
whole yoga in the West, the father of yoga, learned from an apparition. Is that the backstory?
Well, the idea he had many teachers, but
Okay,
there's one book called the Yoga
yoga
Rahasya,
rahasya.
the Secrets of Yoga, that he's that the story goes that it was kind of revealed to him by this person from the past. But he studied asana. I believe, I should be careful now, but I think he studied asana up in the Himalayas with one
Ram Mohan Baba,
Ran
something like
Mohan
that.
Baba. If that,
Yeah.
yeah, I hope that's correct. But he studied Nyaya, logic, in Navadweep, the home of Sri Chaitanya, right?
Really?
Yeah, and
I
when you
didn't know
read the
that.
biographies of Sri Chaitanya, they speak of Navadvip as that center of learning, and great teachers, would be going there. So I guess I don't know, he lived to be 100 and he passed away. When was it? In the 90s, I suppose, or
Yeah, I remember when he left his body.
and so that so somewhere in the early part of the 20th century, he was wandering around India, studying, gaining these degrees. So he was a Vaishnava. He was a brilliant teacher, as you mentioned. A lot of really important yoga teachers, including Iyengar, including Patabi Joyce, including his own son Desikachar, including Indira Devi, right, who was a woman that brought the yoga teachings to. I think she was from Brazil, and she brought, kind of became an important teacher.
Oh, I didn't know she was from Brazil.
I think so.
AG,
And
our good friend AG
and A.G.
Mohan
Mohan, yeah, who's really
taught me taught me the secret pranayams.
in the secret pranayama. You were doing the secret pranayama. so, in any case, real important teacher. So he was asked. Um, the question was the simple: what is yoga asana, right? What is yoga? Basically, what is asana, right? And so this was his answer, and he answered. I really love this answer. I think it's something. I think the answer itself is valuable on different levels. He speaks of what asana can help you achieve. And he speaks of it on three levels. And what's the difference between the three levels is the depth of one's faith, right?
Mm.
In other words, if you go back to the sacred text of yoga and spirituality, Vyasadeva's writings, the Vedas and the Upanishads and the Mahabharata and the Puranas and so on. If you go to those texts, they speak of God being present within the heart, right? That there is a God that's not you, that you can get to know and have a relationship with, and that's with you all the time, and so on. They also speak of just understanding that I'm not the body, that I'm not the mind, that I am the soul, I'm eternal. And within the broader yoga text, there's information about, the health benefits that one can derive from asana. So he's saying, according to your faith in those texts, and in the ideas that are presented in those texts, asana can help you cultivate different levels of benefits. So he begins with saying, for one who has faith, for those who have faith, and that means full faith in all of that, the asana is done to realize the link between the jivatma, the soul, and the paramatma, God, within the heart. Right? So that's why, if I have faith that God exists, God is within my heart, then asana can be part of a practice that's going to bring me to realizing my connection to God. Right?
Part of a practice.
Part of a practice to do that.
Hmm.
But that would be my purpose in practicing it, right? That would be
Right.
the reason I would practice it. And we could go into, we could spend the day, speaking about how that works, how asana. But in very briefly, that when all of the systems in the body are flowing very smoothly, all the digestive system, the circulatory system, the muscular system, all the different systems within the body, when they're all flowing very smoothly, including those subtle systems, that only the yogis speak of, the mind becomes very clear and lucid and easier to control, easier to direct. And so asana would be done for directing the mind towards God. But if you don't have faith in God, then you're not doing asana for that reason, right?
Mm.
But you may have faith that I'm not this body, that I'm a spark of spiritual energy, that I have always existed and I always will exist. I'm eternal. So the second level, he says, is for those who do not have faith in God, but accept the jiva, right? Accept that I'm not this body. I'm an eternal spark of spiritual energy. Yogasana is a particular posture of the body which aids in the samyogam, in the uniting of the jiva, the soul, and the mind, right? So that's a profound realization for a lot of people, that I'm not the mind, right?
Yeah. Sometimes people like say to me, that is a relief, because they get
Yeah.
caught. They get caught in their thoughts,
Yeah.
and their thoughts control them. Their thoughts make them sad. Their thoughts put like a limit on their potential. They beat themselves up with their thoughts. They have lousy self-talk.
Right. Right. So many things, so many of those negative loops. And what do you call it? Turbo
Turbo
cycles?
scenarios,
Turbo scenarios. Yeah.
creating your mind again and again.
Yeah. And so the practice of meditation, even simple practices of playing with the mind, can help us understand that I'm observing my mind. So there's me, and my mind is separate from me. And if one accepts some of the teachings, from, say, Upanishads and so on, then we understand I'm not the body, I'm not the mind. I am a spark of spiritual energy. So I need to realize that my mind is separate from me, and but there's a conflict between me and my mind. I am an eternal spark of spiritual energy, but my mind is acting as if I'm temporary. It's making decisions and becoming attracted to things that are illusory and that are not actually benefiting me. So this tension between my eternal self and my mind that's attracted to all kind of temporary things is creating conflict and suffering. So in this case, I'm not trying to realize God, but I'm trying to get my mind on the same page as myself, so that there's no longer any conflict. And so asana can help with that. Interesting, right?
It's incredibly interesting,
All right.
and it's interesting on paper, but when it
Yeah.
really comes down to it, it gets a little like how do you do this? Like, how do you live this?
Yeah.
We went
Well,
to
yeah.
bed. We went to bed last night with sweet baby Krishna. A lot of
Mhm.
us that are here today, and it was nice. We're hearing the stories of Krishna. We're trying to picture Krishna in the mind. We're trying to envision ourselves as a spirit soul. And I did this like visualization. Okay, try to picture yourself as like, what happens if you were to die right now? Can you like close your eyes and think of a picture of Krishna? You know what I mean? And what would you think of, like, and that type of picture takes away your fear. And then I say something like, let's all go to bed with this vision of Krishna in our mind. Let's just go to bed like that. Let's not stay up late and scroll through our phone and get other visions. Let's make. We talked about pictures we have in the house and what we're visioning and stuff like that. So everybody goes home. They go to bed. Think of Krishna, and I, of course, scroll through my phone, and I find there's this show on Netflix now. Have you heard about this called Near Death?
No.
Oh, you got to see this show, Kaustubha. You
Okay.
gotta see this show. It's all about reincarnation,
All right.
life after death, mediums. It's like but it's done sort of like, it's done pretty scientifically. And so I was just like, well, for the show, I'm gonna like do a little, research and development just for them, not for mine, not for my. So I'm
Do a
like
little
watching. I'm
research
like,
and development.
I'm completely has a little. And I'm like diving into this thing last night, and then it got a little creepy. I went from like sweet baby Krishna faces in my mind to like the
Ghosts.
child. No, it was a child murdered. It was a child
Okay.
murdered, and the child
You went back-
remembered.
you went
The
back to
little
murder.
child remembered his murder,
Oh, okay.
and it was a very, very, but it was interesting. It wasn't like it's scary, but the kid so lucidly to the mother was like, I didn't know what to say. My 5-year-old is telling me all these things.
And they
He's
were
telling
able
me
to
about his different mother.
verify?
When can I go? Huh?
Were they able to verify that
Well,
history?
what happened was they sent this professor there. And there's a whole group of these like metaphysical professors at the University of Virginia who study this stuff. Ian Stevenson, they're coming from like the 50s, and they have a group of people, and they went there and they were just like, And I tell you, it's one thing like we're talking about reincarnation. Yeah, we know. But when you hear it coming from a 5-year-old's mouth, it's like, oh my, it definitely is. And the professor was, so what the mother did, because this particular kid just said, this is my name. She said, do you have another name? Yeah, this is my name. And do you know your mom's name? She said, oh yeah, my mom's got really pretty hair. This is her name. And so the mother Googled the
Pretty hair.
names. Got pretty hair.
Woman with pretty hair.
Woman with
Found
pretty
her.
hair. And she found this person, and the child was killed. And the kid remembered everything accurately. So Professor Stevens, or one of the professors there, came. So here's a picture. Is this your mom or is this your mom? He got 5 for 5 every right. This is my house. This is our car. This is our. It was incredibly uncanny. And then they had one after another, after another, after another. And there's this one kid who was. This little child said so much about his last life. And he was an actor, not a huge actor, but he was like sort of a famous actor in the 50s or something like that. And he told everybody he was in movies with. He's like a little child. And he's telling all this stuff. And the father, who's like this completely Midwest.
Hold on. I got lost now. Who's the actor?
He was he wasn't a famous actor, but he was in Hollywood films. But
what's his relationship to the kid?
Well, this was another kid
another experiment.
Who was an actor in a previous life.
Right.
And he started saying stuff when he was like 4, like, yeah, I'm like tap dancing. He's like, yeah, I really miss tap dancing. And the mother's like, tap dancing?
You were Sammy Davis Jr.
What do you know about tap dancing? And then every time they did this thing about Hollywood, you see the Hollywood sign on the mountain. The kid would go, there's my home. Can we go home, Mom? I really want to go home. And the mother was like, what the heck is going on? And then they zoomed in on this kid. And this kid knew so much information about this random actor. And the actor's been dead. And they went and found the daughter of this actor. And it was like, really, she's like, well, we have a 5-year-old boy who claims that he is your deceased father. And the kid, they went through like 30 questions they asked the kid. And the kid, it was like remarkable, the percentage of the answers, real obscure stuff. And even the father, who's a total non-believer, was like, yeah, my son's this lady's father. I don't know how it is. And it was just like, I feel like it's important that everybody on Wisdom of the Sages watches this Netflix series. I'm ready to stop the class and throw it on right now. I was like, it's one thing to hear about the stuff and you get it but when you hear a little child there's no way they can know about this stuff say, yep, I had a whole previous existence. It really,
is your faith dependent on this kind of thing?
My faith isn't dependent. I believe anyway, but it helps. Okay. I think it helps. It supports it. It supports it. And we say, if you've got to watch entertainment that supports your Vedic path.
Even if it gets a little creepy.
It sometimes gets creepy. Well, let's face it. Death is always generally a little creepy. There's never, it always has a creepy element to it.
Not always, but.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was the second level.
Okay. I don't think I have anything for your third level, but let's go ahead.
In any case, so the first level was for those who have faith in God. The asana is done to realize the link between the Atma and the Paramatma. And then the second level is for those who don't have faith in God, but accept the Atma, accept the Jiva. Yoga is a particular posture of body which aids in the samyogam, in the unity, the uniting of the Atma and the mind. Okay. And when we think of the word yoga, that's an important way to think of it, right? That my mind is no longer operating there's a unity between myself and my mind rather than being at odds with each other. Okay, and then the third one, for those who don't accept the jiva even, right? I don't accept there's a God. I also don't accept there's any life after death. Or I think I am this body. I'm a combination of material elements that's somehow consciousness is developed in, and it will disappear forever with the death of the body.
Still good.
Well, not necessarily that, but asana can still be good. So it says, for those who do not accept the jiva, yogasana is a particular posture which aids in the discipline of the senses and the prana, right? So through yoga asana, it can aid me in not being controlled by my senses, right? Gaining control of my senses and also, having the prana move throughout my body in a healthy way.
So it's basically pushing you towards the distinction, which most of us don't have. Most of us are enmeshed in I am the mind, I am the senses. So it gives us that realization
Yeah.
of separation of self and senses, which is important too
Yeah.
for any material or spiritual success.
Yeah, but yoga, it begins with controlling the senses. People that that's fundamental. If your yoga teacher isn't explaining that to you, they're not really teaching you yoga. Right.
Hey, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Because I was teaching a class yesterday. I just wanted you to validate what I was teaching. Just
Let us
because if I was
see.
wrong, I would just like to tell them right now. But I was saying that, the idea, we were talking about Hiranyakashipu, who was, a mystic, evil mystic. And this evil mystic worshipped Brahma, and Brahma gave him so many benedictions. And they were saying, well, the idea of demigod worship is you get you worship the demigods who are sort of like higher, higher management,
Mhm.
basically, of the universal affairs, and they give you stuff. Basically, the demigods give stuff.
They got resources.
They've got some resources. They can give you a promotion. They can give you a raise, so to speak, and they can give you stuff. And so they're giving benedictions, mystical powers. So what was the purpose of, in the Vedic thought, of worshiping the demigod? So I said it was, in our culture, we have this concept of self-made man. Like, I have created this. I've done this due to my own intelligence and resources and cleverness. Look what I've done. But the idea is that first, one level of spirituality is to get it away from me and my damn ego, and that actually I'm maintained by higher beings. I am taken care of. I am. It's not all about me.
Yeah.
And there's higher beings, and it's not spiritual. I'm still want stuff, but it's a step outside of my materialism.
Hmm.
What do you think? You think that's a good
Yeah, I
answer?
appreciate that. In the past, we've used this analogy of a spoiled child, right? That you have a child that's not only spoiled but ignorant, right?
Ignorant and
Yeah,
spoiled.
ignorant and spoiled. So an ignorant child, ignorant spoiled child, they have no true appreciation of all what their parents are providing for them, and it's leading them down, dark paths. Actually, like we've all seen children, blow into tantrums that are totally unreasonable.
Completely unreasonable.
All right. I'm not getting exactly what I want, and the whole world should be moving around my desires. And when it's not, I'm upset and I'm angry and I melt down and I freak out and all that. So that's the state of being, for most human beings to one level or another, right?
Right.
We don't appreciate everything that we have: our body, our mind, our senses, the water that we drink, the sun that that is giving us life, and the moon, which is investing nutrition into the vegetables, and everything is provided for us.
What?
Yeah, everything is provided for us.
What?
What?
Wait,
The moon?
the moon
The-
gives life to. No, is that a Vedic thing? I'm going to ask Mallory. She's sitting right here. She's a farmer. Mallory, does the moon? Is there a thing? Moon? Is it by? Oh, okay. This is it's a Vedic thing, which probably was co-opted by Rudolf Steiner, because she's saying in biodynamics, he's the father of biodynamic gardening, that the moon does give. Okay. Yes, the moon is giving life. I'm just saying. I just said what to you because it's one of those things that yogis talk about. The moon gives special nutrients.
And the
To
Bhagavad Gita
the
talks about it. Yeah.
Bhagavad Gita talks about it, but I
Yeah.
think a lot of people would be like, "What are you talking
Yeah, well,
about?"
they do their experiments. Someone biologists. We can get a biologist in here to help back
Does
it up.
modern Western science say that the moon gives?
Probably some do. I'm not expert on that.
Probably some do.
Yeah.
Probably some
I mean,
conspiracy.
certainly the moon affects water, and water affects plants, and
Yeah.
at least on that level, right?
Yeah.
So in any case, we move through the world without appreciating these things, and we become upset when things don't go exactly our way. And so therefore, a parent that has a child that's like, blowing tantrums for in very unreasonable ways, they generally discipline that child. They bring forward some kind of punishment to help correct the child, so that the child can understand, what is what. We sometimes say that if you ask that child, where do you get your food from, the child might say, I get it myself.
Right.
I walk to the refrigerator, I get it. But no, on only on the most superficial level do you get it yourself? And similarly, only on the most superficial level do we have I become a self-made man.
Yeah, it's incredibly deep woven arrogance
Yeah.
that everything is created from me,
Yeah.
that I've done it all.
That's right. And so just as the parents worked, earned money, shopped, transported the groceries into the refrigerator, that's who's providing your food. It's not you. Your effort was just one small part of it, of walking to the refrigerator and opening it up. And if the child doesn't recognize that, they don't understand what reality is. They're not going to develop the proper sentiments, the proper gratitude that is going to actually lead toward their happiness, right?
Yeah.
And so that's correct. And so similarly in this world, there's the law of karma, which when we don't recognize where things are coming from, then we pay the price for it, and it's meant to help correct our understanding. So then what does demigod worship have to do with it? It's like if I'm a spoiled child within a house and there are different servants in the house that are providing all my needs, then ideally I could understand that my parents are paying these servants that are providing for all my needs. So I should thank my parents. And I should be grateful to the servants, right? But at the very least, if you have gratitude toward the servant, and the child may realize, when I'm blowing these tantrums and acting unreasonably, I get punished. There's a higher power that punishes me, right? My
Mm.
parents, and I suffer. But if I learn to cooperate, actually, I get more of the things that I want in my world, right? And so
Mm.
that's what demigod worship is, right? That I'll recognize that I'm not the all powerful one and that there are laws that are more powerful than me, and that my needs are being provided by others. Let me show some appreciation. Let me demonstrate some gratitude. And so through ritual, one will, you know, um, give thanks, and practically all spiritual cultures do this in one way or another, right?
I'm thinking like as Americans, especially, growing up in America and Europe, it's like we are from the land of hoarding stuff. It's like we have so much stuff, we can't fit it in our house. We rent out storage containers to hold extra stuff. And we have garages and basements filled with stuff. We love to consume, everybody's it's almost like a pastime or an addiction to go on Amazon, just buy this and buy that, and I have some pain. I shop away my pain, and feeling like our stuff will not only the purchasing, gives us a little like what it must be like a dopamine dump every time we just like purchase something, and we get that email and Amazon Prime, like, okay, your order's been, it's been, and there's other stuff I would like. If I purchase this stuff, the people who buy this thing also like these things, and is I buy more stuff, and it's just like we're living in this consumption, and then we get to this point of like, I'm so sick of consumption, and we want God. I want something else, and I want to give up all this junk. I'm going to clear out all this junk. I got to minimize. I got to simplify. And we go through these sometimes a pendulum swing of indulgence and then getting rid of stuff and house cleaning and stuff like that. And I feel like it's our blessing that we have so much stuff that we're sick of it. And a lot of cultures who are sort of have-not cultures, they're feeling like if we could only, because what we do, we also promote it in Hollywood, how stuff is great, stuff is fun. You should get stuff. Stuff will make you happy like me. And most people are sick of their stuff. And we want to simplify. And hearing about a guy living in a cave or a guy living in a small house or simple living in a tiny home, it's attractive because we're so damn overindulged. It's sort of like we pigged out so much. We want to fast now. And I think it's, in one sense, it's not the most intelligent way to go on your spiritual path, but it's sort of like something that we had to do to realize, okay, this isn't it. This isn't fulfilling. And I think that, a lot of people we know growing up in India, they have this desire, not necessarily, they're from very, very spiritual families, but there's like an attractive thing about America because they're sort of growing up in oftentimes in a have-not situation. And the parents are trying to like, how can we get these guys educated and make good money and stuff like that? And there's a payoff. You trade off that culture of like very, very integrity-driven living for stuff. And it's not like a bad thing. It's like stability in an ever-changing like market, stuff like that. but there's sort of like a payoff where we're sort of like burnt out, addicted, trying to head towards light. And sometimes from these cultures, we find people are, how can I go and get some, how can I get some stability or some financial success and stuff like that? And so it's fun. It's nice because when we're so many people from India listening to the show, we have an interesting blend right in the middle because Indians are trained almost from childhood about spirituality and about pujas and rituals and mantras and japa. And they're in one sense very close to Dharma. And their grandparents maybe are very religious or spiritually steeped in spirituality. And so somehow us going this way and this going this way, we somehow meet in the middle. And it makes for a very, very interesting blend, you know? And it just seems like that karma that we all get in the material world, good karma, bad karma, don't have so much, connected to spirit, not so connected to spirit. We get exactly what we need to sort of get out of this material universe. You know, if you're not spiritual whatsoever, you just got some karma and that's your good luck or bad luck. But once you're like connected to your spiritual path, you realize this karma has been given to me exactly for what I need to sort of escape to escape the material realm, to get out of the material realm. And I think that's what that we're finding within this community. The more I'm fighting against my karma and saying, why me? Why did I get this? The more I realize this thing that I got that I'm getting, this is exactly what I need. And
it's a breakthrough.
And Krishna knows exactly what I need. And that's why he's given it to me. And I've been fighting it all these years and complaining about why me. Sorry,
There's some, I don't know, I think it's some kind of modern axiom, you know, but sometimes people post it on social media or something. It's something like, basically we have two choices: to grow or to repeat. Right? Have you heard that before? Something like that.
But I've heard we either heal it or we pass it on. Is that what you mean? Something like
pass
that?
It on.
Pass it on, like we give it to our children. Oh, but yeah, you're saying your own self. It's like samsara.
The circumstances of our life are meant to educate us. But if we don't get the lesson, then we have to repeat those circumstances.
Right. I'm going to break up with this person and now marry this person, and then I'm going to be okay. Or I'm going to
move from here to there. Or,
And
trying to escape the circumstances rather than grow through the circumstances. Then you're going to have to go through the circumstances again.
Yeah. And we're just really just chasing the mind around the world.
All right.
So the story of my life.
Grow or repeat. That's
okay. That's a tattoo, man. Grow or repeat.
Grow or repeat.
Who's looking for a tattoo here? Anybody? We got some for you.
All right, we're running late here. We're getting deep into the show, and we could finish this chapter.
Left.
No, we got two left. Well, because there's something to discuss there with 44. So why don't we try to hit these both today?
Okay. All right.
Spend about 10 minutes on each one.
The appearance of the Lord is manifested for the annihilation of the upstarts. We read that yesterday. The upstarts, remember?
I remember the upstarts.
His activities are transcendental and are enacted for the understanding of all persons. Otherwise, since the Lord is transcendental to all material modes or gunas, what purpose could he serve by coming to this earth? So he's saying, coming to annihilate the upstarts.
Yeah, but again, that's a secondary purpose, right? To kind of rid the earth of the burden of horrible leaders. That was a secondary thing.
The
real thing.
Secretive. Are you ready for the Vedic secrets?
Yeah.
Oh, my friend, please therefore.
No.
Oh, you want to read the purport? Or you want to tell the secret?
Yeah, well, the point here is, the secret is right there. It's revealed. He says, his activities are transcendental and are acted for the understanding, or we could say the attraction.
I've read right through the secret. Okay.
Right, that's right. So here Prabhupada writes this, and this gets into a little bit of what we were talking about earlier today. He writes, the activities of the Lord are to be accepted and relished. Right? These pastimes, what's going to come out in Bhagavatam, they're meant to be accepted and relished by all living entities. His activities are to attract the ordinary person towards him. The Lord always acts in favor of the devotees, and therefore ordinary people who are fruitive actors, right? People that don't get the whole spiritual picture and are thinking, I want a material gain. Fruitive actors can attain their goals by devotional service. If they become attracted, even their material goals they'll get. And the salvationists, that means the gyanis, like those that want to merge into the oneness, right? The salvationists can also attain their goal in life by devotional service to the Lord. The devotees do not want, now, so three things are mentioned here, right? The karmis, the gyanis, and the bhaktas, right? So the devotees, the bhaktas, the devotees do not want the fruitive results of the work. They do not want any kind of salvation. They relish the glorious superhuman activities of the Lord, such as the lifting of Govardhan Hill or the killing of the demon Putana in infancy, right? His activities are enacted to attract all kinds of people, karmis, gyanis, and bhaktas. Because he is transcendental to the laws of karma, there's no possibility of his accepting a form of maya as is forced on the ordinary living entities who are bound by the actions and reactions of their own deeds. So St. Krishna doesn't appear like we do, due to our karma, due to our past deeds. He appears to display his lila, which is his only interest, loving adventure. But he brings it, it's like you bring a show to a new town, right? It's like, okay, what's going on in the spiritual realm? I'm going to take it into the material realm. People can see it, people of all different varieties, and become attracted to it. And simply by hearing it and becoming absorbed in it, the feelings of love that one feels are more satisfying than material gain. They're more satisfying than salvation, right? Escape from material suffering. They're just, but it's something that, again, that's the esoteric side of bhakti that you really have to spend time with to understand.
We're taking the show on the road. It's sort of
Yeah.
like Wisdom of the Sages.
Yeah.
He's taking it on the road with us.
All right.
Should we wrap this up with text 45?
Sure.
Oh, my friend, please therefore chant the glories of the Lord, who is meant to be glorified in the places of oh, my friend, please therefore chant the glories of the Lord, who is meant to be glorified in the places of pilgrimage. He is unborn, and yet appears by his causeless mercy upon the surrendered rulers of all parts of the universe. Only for their interest did he appear in the family of his unalloyed devotees, the Yadus.
Yeah. There's some nice stuff from the commentary here too. It's just a
Dive
paragraph.
deep, dive deep.
Okay, let's dive deep. He says the purpose of pilgrimages. Right? Everybody there's kind of on a pilgrimage right now.
Yeah, it's a little pilgrimage.
The purpose of pilgrimages is to remember the Lord constantly, and therefore the Lord is known as Tirtha Kirti.
Tirtha Tirti?
Tirtha Kirti.
Tirtha Kirti.
Kirti. So Kirti means
Wealth or
like glories, right? Fame or glories, right?
okay.
So I guess it means he's glorified in the tirthas, in the holy places. He's glorified, right?
Tirtha, okay.
Tirtha Kirti. The purpose of going to a place of pilgrimage is to get the chance to glorify the Lord. In other words, to absorb one's mind in the meditation of these leelas, of these loving adventures. Even today, although times have changed, there are still pilgrimage sites in India. For example, in Mathura, in Vrindavan, where we had a chance to stay, where Prabhupada lived for some time, right? People are awake from early in the morning at 4 a.m. We were talking about this the other day, right? Oh, waking up early and going on Prikrama, walking around Vrindavan. People are awake from early in the morning at 4 a.m. up until nighttime and are constantly engaged, some way or other, in chanting the holy glories of the Lord. The beauty of such a pilgrimage site is that automatically, right? Automatically, I don't have to try. It's not like it's a yoga where I go through like these intense, practices of self-discipline and try and fail again and again to try to discipline my mind. Prabhupada's saying when you're in that place, that automatically, right? He says the beauty of such a pilgrimage site is that automatically one remembers the holy glories of the Lord. His name, nama, fame, quality, pastimes, and entourage are all identical with the Lord, and therefore chanting the glories of the Lord invokes the personal presence of the Lord. Anytime or anywhere pure devotees meet and chant the glories of the Lord is present without a doubt.
Well, we came, we're staying at Shama Ashram, but a few of us are staying at different places because they don't have enough room for everybody. So we come here in the morning. And, I'm hustling, running late like usual, and
Mhm.
we come upon this beautiful scene where they're all, the temple residents here,
Yeah.
Shamasundari and Sri Govinda, and they're all doing their morning songs in the temple room. It's open air. It's sort of like inside and
Yeah.
outside,
It's
sort of.
got a roof and a
Yeah,
wall,
it's got a
but
roof, but
otherwise
it's
it's open.
open
Yeah.
on three sides, and it's just so beautiful. If you came in, it's so beautiful to hear all these people. I'm like rushing, like spilling stuff, and then glasses are falling off, and they're just like sitting and peacefully singing, and they're offering incense, and I feel like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. How sweet. And even though I'm running late, I'm revealing this to you now. I was like, I'm gonna go in here and sit and sing for a few moments before I go in there and set up the computer. And it was just so pleasant to enter into their world for a
Mm.
moment. And I was just thinking also that, okay, I don't think that I don't think they built this place. This probably was something else. Um, Yet whatever it is, they took it over, and they built this ashram here. And whatever this, who knows what this was, a stable or they take a house or whatever was happening here. They've transformed it into a spiritual realm that so many people come take shelter in.
Mm.
And there could have even been criminal activities here. Who knows? This could have
Could have
been
been.
like, there could have been
There could have been murder going on there.
murder, maybe life after death things happening, kidnapping. Who knows what was happening here? But they've transformed it with sound, just with what's, it's like what I always say is like, what makes a great yoga teacher is what comes out of that teacher's mouth. And it's got nothing to do with space, because sometimes I've taught yoga in beautiful New York City lofts, and sometimes I've taught in like strip malls in, Allentown, Pennsylvania, or something like that. And it's got nothing to do with the beautiful space or the ugly space. It's got to do what comes out of the yoga teacher's mouth. And if the mouth is teaching truth, then that place becomes transformed. Then it becomes beautiful and becomes a ashram and a place of shelter. And I watched this place become like a place of pilgrimage. It's a place of pilgrimage now, and so many people are coming to take shelter here. And it's really the potency of what is spoken about and what is heard on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And you can transform your home like that, and your home can be your ashram by the speaking. And a parent can do that within their family by what comes out of the parent's mouth and where our energy gets directed. There used to be a temple in the center of a house. If you go to these houses in India, you see there's the temple. Please come in, have darshan. And now we've shifted that temple away, and we've installed a giant 8-foot television set. You know what I mean? And that's become the temple.
Right.
And that's the center, and all the chairs are around the television set, and
The
that's like
couches.
the altar, and it's the opiate of the masses. It's everything. It's become our altar.
Right.
And so yeah, I feel like our job is to really re-spiritualize space, and make every space we go a place of pilgrimage, and that really that's what we're training right now. This is training for that.
Well, thank you for that. Prabhupada says here, and again, this last sentence that we read is kind of, this is a worthy tattoo right here.
You
Did
got
you
a
disappear
tattoo
on us?
for me?
Are you still around? Huh?
I mean, I'm going. My
Take it
camera
back.
goes out of focus. You see me?
So he said again, anytime or anywhere. Okay, so there's no limitations. Right? Anytime, anywhere. Pure devotees meet. People that have purified their minds, right? Yogis, people that have purified their minds through devotion. Anytime they meet and chant the glories of the Lord, they meditate together through speaking and hearing about this spiritual substance of Krishna's loving adventures. Anytime or anywhere that's happening, the Lord is present without a doubt. And then he says, it is said by the Lord himself that he always stays where his pure devotees chant his glory. So what we're talking about here is it's kind of like people can take religion and present it in very simplistic ways, right? You believe, you die, you go to heaven, you stay with God or something like that. This is kind of a more essential understanding of what it means to be in the presence of God, right? That God appears in a form, but God's presence can be with us at any moment. when our mind is no longer interfering, when our mind is aligned with the nature of the soul, we can feel the presence of God anytime, anywhere. And a formula for that, one formula is chanting God's name. Really, this kirtan, right? Like, again, kirtan can mean, it means glorification, whether it's musical, whether it's the recitation and speaking on Krishna's lila. That act it's not an act of the material world, it's an act of the spiritual world. It's entirely potent spiritually. So Prabhupada, he alludes to a verse from the Padma Purana where I assume it's Lord Vishnu speaking. And Lord Vishnu says, my dear Narada, he's speaking to Narada, important person, always popping up in the Bhagavatam. He says, actually, and this I love, maybe it's Krishna speaking, because he's speaking in this very human way. Krishna does this sometimes, which I find interesting, right? It's like, okay, God's going to speak, but he speaks like we speak. Like, and when I say human, I mean like when we'll say something that's not necessarily entirely factually accurate, but it gets the point across. Like we'll say like, oh man, this is taking forever, right? Like, so this is what Krishna says. He says, actually, I do not reside in my abode. But I do not reside in my abode Vaikuntha. Right now, of course, he does reside there, right? But he says, nor do I reside within the hearts of the yogis. Really? But he's trying to emphasize a point here. Right?
Where does he reside?
But I reside in that place where my pure devotees chant my holy name and discuss my form, pastimes, and qualities. Nama, guna, rupa, lila. Right? So it's to get the point across. Because if we're just thinking, if we're walking through this world like thing, when will the day come when I'm no longer here and I'm in the presence of God in the spiritual realm? He's saying, no, create that right now, right? Anywhere where you get together and people that are absorbed in this, you feel that presence. And it's something that I think, we all feel. That's part of what it keeps us in this practice is, even though with our cloudy, muddied brains and, and minds, there are times, really any time, but especially when you're around that person who's very deep, that person who's very pure. When my pure devotees chant my holy name and discuss my foot, we feel it, right?
I think we've got this like, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's all. Go ahead.
I have a black belt in cutting people off. I was thinking of like even if we feel like, well, I'm not pure and maybe my buddy's not pure, it's great to have a community where you can get together with a friend and say, you know what, let's read together.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. I think to find people that you can relate to. And maybe through the pandemic, we have people in other states or other countries where you can get together. And sometimes in Wisdom of the Sages, we'll have these reading groups. People will just create. And I think it's important and cool. But it's good to have a friend that you can go to and say, hey, let's have, and it makes a sanctified relationship because your relationship is based on deeper spiritual truths. And that will be a deep, deep friend than some superficial friendship. It'll be a deep friendship that will be the core center of your bond. And I think it's important to have even at least one person that you can go to, that you can trust, that you can go deep with, even instead of having millions of friends, and a few good friends. And the whole world talks about community. It's about community. You know what? It's about community. It's only about community if the community is doing something substantial to uplift your consciousness. Otherwise, who cares? There's crazy communities out there too. We don't need any community.
What you're saying, first of all, I thought one of the coolest things I found out about Wisdom of the Sages was, without our knowledge, that people had kind of virtually bonded together and created reading groups, right? Like, I was like, wow, that's so cool. That's exactly what, I would try to go and organize and put effort into, and people are just doing it on their own. I think that's just like, that was.
I know, me and Kaustubha's bandwidth is taxed out, and then people are just on their own. Like, hey, let's start reading this book together.
Let's read together.
It just manifests
so great.
Like that.
Yeah. And what you're saying about the value of that type of association and how it transforms one's life. Excuse me. There's a verse from Bhagavatam. There's a verse where the Prachetas, right? They're praying to Lord Vishnu. This will come up in the 4th canto. We'll read about the Prachetas, which were the 10 princes, right? Sons of a king. And the king asked them to prepare themselves to kind of like take over and to populate the earth more. They were kind of progenitors as well. And they were just kind of like these really together young men, right? Who said,
Populate
okay,
the earth. Okay.
yeah, but like we'll take the order of our father seriously. It's dharmic, it's proper, it's good, and but we need to prepare for it. And so they spent, I think, 10,000 years underwater in meditation, right? And on their way to on their way to practice this meditation, they run into Lord Shiva coming out of the water. He looks beautiful, and he's coming out of the water, and he says, "I know who you are, and I know what you're about to do, and I appreciate your attitude and your determination, and I'm going to give you some mantras to meditate on for your practice." And so there's a chapter in the fourth canto of Lord Shiva's prayers to Krishna, right? Beautiful prayers. And so they take those prayers. It's like 35 verses or something like that. They go into the water for 10,000 years. They meditate on those prayers. And then they come out. And Lord Vishnu appears to them and expresses his gratitude to them. So then they start to pray to Lord Vishnu, like new prayers, their own spontaneous prayers, which are fantastic. And there's one prayer that relates to this. And this is it. And what you said is so important because it's about friendship and it's about community, but it's about what that community is based around. How valuable it becomes, how it transforms our life, how it actually makes us happy. Right? We find we don't need, the television, and we don't need, if we have friends and we come together around this spiritual topics, we all feel uplifted. So what the Prachetas prayed to Lord Vishnu was, whenever pure topics of the transcendental world are discussed, the members of the audience forget all kinds of material hankerings, at least for the time being. Not only that, but they are no longer envious of one another, nor do they suffer from anxiety or fear.
Mm.
Right? So, we're in a world where it's like anxieties at all-time peaks. Animosity, and again, this word envy, I think commonly when it's used, we can understand as animosity, right? Animosity is at a super high. Anxiety and fear, maxed out. Is there a remedy? And I'm not saying that different kind of counselors or psychiatrists, they play an important role in life, but here's something right here, that can deliver even far more. And even while you're doing it, at least for the time being, you'll forget all your troubles if you get absorbed in it, and you'll feel so good. But what to speak, it can carry on after that our sufferings and our anxieties and our envy, they dissipate by hearing the pastimes of Krishna.
Maybe the universe is getting so extreme with this envy and this hate and this anxiety that it's either going to crack us or push us towards something very sublime and sweet. Maybe that's the plan. I'm trying to figure out the plan because it's really crazy right now. But maybe that's it. It's just so extreme in the material world that out of just self-preservation, this becomes like a sanctuary for us.
Well, I think it goes back to that. It's either grow or repeat, right?
Right.
It's like as a society, either we're going to grow through this, grow through COVID, grow through political upheaval, either we're going to grow through it or we're going to repeat it.
And I know people like me with my mind that's all over the place. It's to go to sit and listen to kirtan. It's not normal for me to sit and listen to kirtan. I know I'm a musician stuff, but for me to sit, that's hard for me to do because my mind starts going like this. I start looking around. You know what I mean? Just to sit and hear to the Bhagavatam. And if you could just tolerate the mind's pullings and just go into it, a deeper pleasure of connection comes, and that's very natural. It's very, and people, when we're wound up in our thoughts, they want to drive us here to, there's that story. Remember, I'll make this quick because we're wrapping up, but there was a group of students that weren't my students that I took to India. And there was a special festival in Chowpatty at Radhanath Swami's temple. So they weren't my students, but I took the entire group on pilgrimage because the owner of the studio was one of my students. Okay. So I took them, but they didn't really know anything about bhakti or meditation. And I said, listen, there's an incredible kirtan going on right now. And it's a big festival. It was for the Rasa Purnim. And it was just like, it was like basically like 30 people who were just like, okay. And it was like sort of a very big buildup, like thousands of people there. Raghunath Swami put our people right up front. And almost the curtains were closed and the curtain was building and everybody's sitting in like anticipation. Something's going to happen. They're going to open those curtains. And for devotees and people practicing bhakti, the buildup is as good as the finale, pretty much. It's sort of like, we're just chanting. Raghunath Swami's chanting. All these great souls are there chanting. Special VIP people are coming in, but beautiful, sincere, heartfelt, connected people are coming in. And all these like sort of people new to India and new to bhakti, they're just sitting there like, well, what's going on? What's going on? All right, I'll sit here. They're you could tell they're getting fidgety. I'm like, oh no, I hope they just can sit here and just be peaceful and enjoy it. Now, a lot of people are in India. They're used to kirtan. They're used to it. So they're actually in bliss. And it's been it's going on forever. And even in my own material mind, I'm thinking, okay, guys, you should speed this up. My people are going to lose they're going to lose their thing very soon. And finally, there was a buildup, and the curtains open. And thousands of people are Haribol, screaming, Haribol. The kirtan gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And all it is, is like more flowers on the altar and more like decorations and the deities were maybe moved forward a little bit or something. But for the people in a bhakti culture, they're like, oh, and screaming and they're throwing flowers. And all the people that were like my guests were just like, they're like waiting for like whatever, an explosion or something, like mechanical robots or something. And that was it. And one of the people just gets up in the middle of like this huge festival. Everybody's sitting down praying. One gets up and goes, anybody want to go to Leopold's? And they were like, yeah, let's go to Leopold's. And Leopold's is like sort of like the Hard Rock Cafe of Bombay. And I was like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. And what's interesting,
I thought the story was gonna be, they all got totally caught up in it, and
no, they didn't get caught up in it. No, they didn't get caught up in it one bit. Yeah. As a matter of fact, it's this FOMO that people suffer from.
Yeah, right.
Fear of missing out. As a matter of fact, there's so many people at the temple that night that there's a line to get up to where we are to have that darshan, and then they got to exit. And so all the people are talking like, hey, why is everybody going out that door? Maybe something's happening out there. And I was like, you foolish people, don't you understand? They're all trying to get up where you're sitting so they can have a closer darshan. And it's this living in the mind to take us somewhere else to enjoy. If I could just sit and be here.
Well, Raghu, there's one other verse that we could read to wrap it up.
Hit me.
This is a verse spoken by Maharaj Pariksit himself at the beginning of the 10th canto when all of Krishna's pastimes are about to be spoken. And he's just feeling, that association. He's feeling so high from it, And he says, glorification of the Supreme Personality of God, it is performed in the Parampara system. It's handed down from guru to disciple, from teacher to student, in an authorized yogic tradition. That is, it is conveyed from spiritual master to disciple. Such glorification is relished by those no longer interested in the false, temporary glorification of this cosmic manifestation. Descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned soul undergoing repeated birth and death. Therefore, who will cease hearing such glorification of the Lord? Except
those who want to go to Leopold's.
A butcher?
A butcher.
And one who's killing his own soul, which is those that want to go to Leopold. You're killing your own soul by that, right? Don't go to Leopold. Go to the temple.
I've never been to Leopold's. I've been to Bombay many times. Never went to Leopold's. Not interested. They say that you have to become materially exhausted to advance in spiritual life. Is anybody there?
Sick
Anybody
of it all.
Materially exhausted? Oh, you gotta be. Some people are like, sort of. I'm a little exhausted, not fully exhausted. There is some hope there's no hope in the material world. I'm sorry. There's hope in the spiritual world, in our spiritual life. Thanks for joining us. Hey, guess what? There's no show tomorrow. There's no Q&A day tomorrow. But Janavi Harrison is our special guest.
Okay. That makes up for it. A little bad news and a little good news.
And Janavi and me are doing a thing on Instagram Live tomorrow at noon. We're interviewing each other, and we're sort of like hoarding the cats, or herding the cats, not hoarding the cats. We're hoarding cats. We're herding the cats towards Wisdom of the Sages on Sunday at 8 a.m. Eastern time. So please join us there. She's in New Jersey. You guys are in New York or wherever, and I'm from down here. And sorry, we got a day off tomorrow. It's a real sleep-in Saturday. You can really sleep in. Or you can join AJ Sullivan and their reading group. But thanks, everybody, for joining us. If you like something that we said, if there was some nugget of knowledge, write it down on your phone, tag us, post it. We'll retag you, and we'll post it. And that way it sort of spreads little truth nuggets. It's important to spread truth nuggets. You never know where they're going to land on someone's lap who needs to hear them. If you're new to the show, welcome. Go on Apple Podcasts, write us a review, tell us your story, tell us about your journey home, and we want to hear it. And thanks, everybody. Oh, tonight, Sweet Baby Krishna, 7 p.m., Patreon members. This is community-sponsored podcast. Oh, my God, you got to see this?